So Athens sent out no colonies. Sparta sent out only one colony to Tarentum, in southern Italy. For the Spartans were finding local vents for their population and energy. But other states of more advanced economic interests and limited homelands, such as Corinth, Chalcis, Eretria, Miletus, and others, made up for this lethargy, and their colonizing leadership probably drained off some discontented elements from nearby areas. He keeps reading into this that the discontented and unhappy people were the ones to leave. Maybe the discontented and unhappy were the ones that had to stay. Maybe the people with a little bit of money to invest went to make their way in the new colonies. Marxism's too thick in this guy. And he just skips right past, I've been on Sparta there. In Hellenic History, Botsford and Robinson, published 1922, this is updated in 1950, they mentioned that Sparta probably took Tarentum in southern Italy and didn't want to take any more colonies, didn't care to, didn't need to, because it needed it for agricultural land. It wasn't necessarily there for trade, and Tarentum apparently has a lot of agricultural land with it. But that's not mentioned in this text. When a home polis decided to found a colony, various preliminary steps were necessary. Colonists had to be sought and sometimes were drafted, one per family, under penalties if they did not stick to the new settlement. Undoubtedly, volunteers had to be inspected to be sure they were physically strong and had enough resources to carry them through the first year. That's why I'm saying I think possibly it was an opportunity. And there probably were a bunch of people who were going for the opportunity and needed other people to come and do hard work, and the state forced these people to go with those people. Something like that. I don't think we could read it as all of it is a bunch of happy people who want to do this, nor could we read it as all of them are discontented and being forced into this situation they don't like. But historians have tried to do both. A site, too, had to be selected beforehand. On this point, the advice of traders was useful, merchants who go about. In later days, the priests at the great oracles of Didyma and Delphi, who heard much about the world from travelers, also could be consulted. And whether or not they were consulted with good effect, I don't know. Then the colonists, probably not more than a few hundred families, embarked and made their way to the new site, where they built a citadel, built a wall, threw up houses and temples for the gods, and allotted out the fields. This is from the Odyssey, where they're describing the settlement of Scheria, S-C-H-E-R-I-A, the fairy tale city of Alcinous and Nausicaa. So that's a description by Homer. The leader, called the oikistes, was a noble, often probably an ambitious man who was thwarted at home by fellow aristocrats. He bore a heavy responsibility, and if the colony were successful, he was worshipped by later generations. Now, they actually did have cults, and they worshipped as some sort of demigod. In the cult of this city, the founder of this city. That's true, but it mentions here the noble was probably an ambitious man. That's fine. Maybe, maybe not. The person who led the colony, and was thwarted at home by his fellow aristocrats. I see this interpretation again in several different texts and still don't have any reason to believe it except Marxist nonsense. The discontented go out and about. Maybe he wasn't thwarted at home. Maybe he was the most powerful. And that's why he was given the opportunity to go become the leader and demigod of a new colony. Why should it be that he's thwarted? This author and this author over here, and just Marxist interpretation. Continuing, nonetheless, each colony was founded as a polis, as an individual city-state. As a result, it usually was entirely independent of the home state, though the fire on its sacred hearth and its principal cult were brought from the mother polis. The modern connotation of the word colony as meaning a subject territory are misleading. especially for the new states in Italy and Sicily. Some settlements in the Black Sea, by Miletus and elsewhere by Corinth, did remain more or less dependent upon the parent state. And once established, a new polis rarely accepted later colonists, except in an emergency. Strange. We're going to have our own town. We don't have enough resources in our town for anybody else to come in. Nobody else can come in. Strange. Athens, one of the great city-states of the world, had citizens from all over. To explain the success of this wave of Greek expansion, one must look principally to the dynamic qualities of Hellenic civilization and to the happy blend of individual initiative and communal loyalty of the polis structure. Military and naval considerations also played a part. By the 8th century, Greek sailing ships had been much improved, and a style of long warship called the pentaconter, since it was rowed by 50 men, this had been evolved by the 8th century. In their phalanx organization, the Greek settlers were able to bowl over much larger numbers of more poorly organized natives along the western coasts. Most of the colonists made their way to southern Italy and eastern Sicily, which were in later times called Greater Greece. The first enduring colony in this area was Cyme, C-Y-M-E, normally known by its Latin name of Cumae, C-U-M-A-E. This settlement was a joint foundation by 750 by Chalkis with Eretria and the city of Cyme in Asia Minor. Cumae, situated on a hill at the neck of a peninsula, was easily defensible. It also lay as close to the Etruscan mines of copper and iron as the Greeks ever settled. In a great rush during the next 2 generations, men from, get this, Chalkis, Actia, Ionia, and other areas took most of the desirable Italian coastal points to the south, and the Corinthians established themselves at the mouth of the Adriatic, as at Corcyra. So the Greeks had hegemonic power over the Italian peninsula, most of the desirable Italian coastal points. Tarentum, Greek name was Terrace, that was unique in being a Spartan colony. As we mentioned, that's the only one they founded. Not until about 600 could the Greeks vault on beyond the Etruscans and Phoenicians to make the lasting bridgeheads in France and Spain. The Phocaeans of Asia Minor then founded Massilia around 600 BC, which in turn set up trading posts along the Spanish coast. The Greeks were all the way over in Spain and France. By this time, the civilized people originating in the eastern Mediterranean were beginning to rub on each other more severely in the west. In the 6th century, wars of critical importance broke out among the Phoenicians, Etruscans, and Greeks, and some of the natives, such as the Romans, began to rise to civilized levels. We skipped quite a bit now. The rise of Rome is a different story, but for those of you who, a lot of people think Rome was the ancient civilization, but Greece was the ancient civilization. Rome inherited Greek civilization. Wheat, slaves, gold, and other essential materials came from South Russia. So let's talk about the colonies. We skipped a bit past the stuff about Rome and the wars. And the colonies that they traded with on the Black Sea brought in wheat, slaves, gold from South Russia. Iron and manufactured metal objects were derived from the eastern end of Asia Minor, where the kingdom of Urartu lay. Fish were U-R-A-R-T-U. Fish were sent to Greece from many points. In return, the Greeks exported wine, olive oil, incense, and other objects, including the fine pottery which has turned up in abundance in the great mounds where Scythian lords of the South Russian plains were buried. How do you like that? Some of our best Greek pottery from the South Russian plains. Economic and social changes. Economic progress up to the year 600 BC is our concern here. Colonization was the product of so many local and